committee that I want to be on, the committee I'm going to try hardest to be on, is the Veterans Affairs Committee. Richard Burr, Senator Richard Burr, is the ranking member of the Veterans Affairs Committee in the Senate. There is not one member of the North Carolina delegation on the Veterans Affairs Committee. Not one. If Renee Elmers is on the committee that helps her raise money. She's not on Veterans Affairs because there's no money there. She's on the committee that helps her raise money. Her job should be to be on the Veterans Affairs Committee because she's got a lot down here. And it's ridiculous that nobody in this state, with one of the largest, fastest growing Veterans Affairs populations in the country, is on the Veterans Affairs Committee. So I want to be there because I think we need to be more proactive, and we need to be more aware, and we need to be listening to the people who know and fixing these problems. The budget issue is something we've got to be more fiscally responsible with. And I'm not talking, though, about just taking a hatchet or a hacksaw to the budget and cutting it in half or cutting it in this way. We've got to take a scalpel. The government spends billions of dollars a year maintaining and keeping buildings that we don't touch. The federal government spends billions of dollars a year maintaining buildings that are vacant. Sell them. Stop paying for them. Or put them to use in some way. We also essentially spend, if it's not directly spending, we give away billions of dollars a year in tax credits and tax loopholes to huge corporations who are making hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And they get these big tax breaks that I don't get, that you don't get, that people who are in this district don't get, because we can't afford the lawyers, we can't afford the accountants that these billion-dollar organizations can afford to find all these tax loopholes. Like, hey, you know what? If I'm going to ship my job overseas, I get a tax break for the moving expenses. Part of the way to solve the budget is to cut a lot of these loopholes, to cut a lot of these loopholes so that these big corporations are not getting unfair tax advantages. If we have families who are moving their kids from Cumberland County schools after they're transferred to another post into Fort Benning in Georgia, we want to make sure that those kids are getting the same education and they're not finding themselves 2 years behind or 2 years ahead when they change from school to school. And if you move from North Carolina to Tennessee or to Iowa or to wherever, or vice versa, I want to make sure those kids have some sort of basic framework. I think it's important to have a basic framework so that we understand that in first grade there are certain basic benchmarks. We want to make sure kids know how to add and subtract by the time they leave single-digit numbers, if that's what it is. I'm not saying it is. By the time they leave first grade. We want to make sure they can read certain words by the time they get to first grade. But how they do it should be determined in the area, because every local area has things that are unique to them. And very basic framework from the federal government. It is important to make sure that we're attracting jobs from overseas to a country, and they know they can put their job here in North Carolina and they can recruit employees from anywhere because the kids aren't going to be behind. But as far as how it's taught, we've got to do away with federal overreaching on how things are taught and how teachers are incentivized and how schools are funded. The reason that people propose $10.10 an hour is so because that's the level at which you can work 40 hours a week and not be considered in poverty. It's not just a number someone pulled out of nowhere. The idea that we are allowing corporations, big companies, to pay their employees $7.25 an hour, that means that these folks are choosing to pay their employees less and then sending their employees out into the world and asking you and me and everybody else to pick up the slack for them. Because if you're making $7.25 an hour and you're working one job 40 hours a week, then you're going to end up being on government assistance in some way. It's not okay for a fast food restaurant or for a large retail corporation to say we're not going to pay our employees this much because we know the federal government will put them on welfare. That's ridiculous. That's insulting to a taxpayer. To me, that makes me mad as a taxpayer to know that I'm picking up the slack for these corporations who don't want to pay their employees a livable wage. So yes, I support moving it up to a level where the minimum wage allows people to live at least above the poverty line. And then I also think that we should expand the earned income tax credit on top of the minimum wage being raised. I grew up as a child being taught how to shoot just because my family knew how to use them responsibly. I've got a cousin who owns a gun store. I have absolutely no interest in trying to take away his livelihood, nor try to take away the rights of my responsible gun-owning family members and friends. I don't want to take their rights away either. What I do believe we have to do, what I do say strongly is, it's not the government, it's not me, it's not Democrats who are trying to take their rights away from them. The people who are threatening their rights are those folks who are allowing those guns to get into the hands of people who go into elementary schools and shoot them up. Those people who go in with mental health issues, criminal background records, those are the ones who are who are threatening the rights of gun owners. Because it's when those people do that that people get up in arms and say they want to change these rules and laws. Are there things that needed to be changed? Certainly. Certain loopholes that gun shows are allowed to exercise, where you don't have to have a waiting period. You can just go in and buy a gun. Certain inefficiencies when it comes to making sure that people who have mental health issues, histories of criminal violence, are able to get a gun. We've got to do a better job of having background checks. You know what? If we keep sending the same people back, we're going to keep getting the same thing. Bottom line, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? Well, we keep sending the same folks back. It says, I'm sick and tired of nothing getting done. I'm sick and tired of the status quo. I'm sick and tired of sending you to Washington, having you say these things to me, then you do nothing about it, and then you still get reelected.